am Tara Bentley, and I'm the Executive Director for the Indiana Association of Home Educators, otherwise known as the IAHE.
Hi, I'm Cindy Briggs. I'm a homeschool mom and a volunteer with IAHE.
We're here bringing you this podcast to share with you a lot of great information about homeschooling here in Indiana. This will be a place to learn about homeschooling, find the support you need, all in the Hoosier State.
Each week, we're going to focus on a different topic in the homeschool world. We'll bring you special guests and information that's going to help you on your homeschool journey. So let's get started.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back. We are ready to jump in today and talk more about homeschooling here in Indiana. Yes. And so, Cindy, we don't live near each other. Indiana is not the biggest state, but it's pretty big.
Yeah, it is pretty big when you think about it. And we've probably only been in person. We've worked together almost a year, and we've probably only been in person, twice, I think?
Yeah.
Maybe.
And we talk a lot about the different homeschool communities. And
Absolutely.
So today, one of the things, what we're going to focus on is Indiana homeschooling. And so I live in Southeast Indiana. And so, and again, I've been done homeschooling for 10 years at this point. It's hard to believe. That's a pretty major milestone.
Yeah.
Actually, you've got quite a few years left.
I do. We're, fifth grade. So yeah, we've got a couple. And then I live more. I was joking with Tara before we went live because I was like, am I kind of northeast? I'm on the I-69 corridor, like between Indianapolis and Fort Wayne. So I'm more up in that north area, which is different. Different homeschool communities, different things going on.
And for families who live in Indianapolis, it's a totally different. They have a lot of options in Indianapolis that others don't have.
Right.
And we have, I have to remind myself, I don't do a great job of reminding myself, like, let's be honest. We still have parts of this state that are on Central Time.
Right. We do. I know. I forget that too. And I think so often people think, when they think about homeschool or connecting, they'll think about the big cities, well, I'm not in Indianapolis, or I'm not in Fort Wayne, or I'm not, in these big towns, so I can't do it. But there are communities all over, small communities that have great homeschooling groups.
Homeschool groups, sports teams, drama organizations, like all kinds of things. And so one of the things that IAHE has had for over 20 years, I'd have to go back and check my notes. I probably should have done that before, but maybe almost 30 years, the IAHE has regional representatives. And so these are volunteer couples that serve with the organization, and they help answer questions from homeschoolers. How do I get started? How do I withdraw my child from public school? How do I find a support group or a sports team? And so I know when I got started, that was the first person that I spoke with. I didn't know any homeschoolers. And so I found the organization, found the website, connected with my regional rep, and they helped me, answer my most basic questions. And so we're going to kind of feature, we're going to talk to you're going to talk to our lead representative, Kelly Cox.
Right. Who was one of the first people I talked to in the organization myself.
Right. And so I started
as a volunteer. Yeah.
Yeah. I started off as a regional rep in the organization. Kelly was a regional rep and is now the lead rep. And you are currently a regional rep.
Absolutely. And I think it just helps people have kind of a name and a connection in their location, in their area. Whenever you're part of a group and you're talking to somebody that's on the other side of the state and you're thinking, well, you don't really know my situation, or you don't know, my area. But regional reps, we do know the area. We do know what's going on. We try to stay really connected with the homeschool environment so we can serve that to other people.
Yeah. And it's very important because groups come and go, and it's really hard to find some of them sometime. And some communities have great library programs. We can help you figure out what's going on in your area. And if you happen to know of a group that is not listed on our website, we do list the groups on our website these days. So it's not totally, let's just say it's not totally inaccessible to you. If you are a registered user on our website, you can find your region, you can look at it. But sometimes you just want more information. And again, reaching out to your rep will help you.
Absolutely. So yeah, I was very excited to get to talk to Kelly. And I mean, I've talked to Kelly on different occasions, but it was fun to get to interview her and just kind of soak in all of her knowledge because like I've said in our other podcasts, I'm still relatively new in this whole world in the 4 year mark. And so yeah, it's fun to just hear more of the history and the people who have gone before that know more of this information.
And of course, we want to be really, really clear. Homeschooling is regulated at the state level. That's why it is so important to know your state laws. We are one of the freest states in the country. But if you're listening to us and you are somewhere else, we recommend you go to homeschoolfreedom.com to find your state
Yep.
organization because it makes a huge difference. I live out, basically the tri-state of Cincinnati, Ohio. And so if I'm a homeschooler in Ohio, it's different. If I'm a
Mhm.
homeschooler in Northern Kentucky, it's
It's
different. And I'm
different.
sure glad I live on this side of the line.
That exactly. And we always, as always, we put all of this in our show notes. So like we will remind you where you can click because we hope people are listening to us from all over. I mean, we're serving the state of Indiana, but if you're listening, you're just like, I just want to know more about homeschool. We hope to give you the resources to know where to go find that for yourself.
That's great. So we will kick it off and listen to
Yep.
your interview with Kelly Cox and dig into some of the most frequently asked questions with new homeschoolers.
Absolutely. Thanks. Hey everyone, I am so excited today because I get the opportunity to interview Kelly Cox. And Kelly Cox is our lead representative for the regional representatives with IAHE. And she just brings a wealth of knowledge to homeschooling. As you all have heard in the previous episodes, me doing this for 4 years, I still feel like a complete like beginner. So there's people like Kelly out there in the world who know so much more than I do. So Kelly, first let's get started with, can you just kind of share your story with everybody, how you got started, when you got started, all that.
Sure, but let me first say to your comment, I am by no means an expert, right? We're all still learning. We'll be learning until the last one is
Right?
graduate.
That makes everyone feel better, I think. We're all
Yes,
figuring it out.
yes. My husband and I have 3 kids, and they're all 3 teenagers now. So we've been homeschooling for quite a while. This is our 12th year, and every season has its challenges and its adventures, but really enjoying the stage that we're at right now. And we live in Union County.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. So how long have you been a volunteer with IAHE? How long have you been around?
Maybe 6 years. I
Okay.
could be, but about 6 years. We started off as the representatives for Region 14, and
Okay.
then eventually took this position, my husband and I.
Oh, that's awesome. That is so wonderful. And yes, you were right. Like every season has its times and its ups and downs. And we said this on a previous episode of if somebody's out there scrolling through social media and seeing all the perfect of homeschool, this is not the place. Like we are
Yes.
just like we're doing it every day the best we can. So what we're going to talk about today on this episode is Kelly oftentimes trains and gives talks to people who are thinking about homeschooling. So right now we're recording this the end of February in 2024, and people might be thinking for like the fall, they might be even thinking about pulling children out of school now, or, I've had people even who are pregnant or have little bitty babies that are like, I'm thinking about homeschooling, but I don't even know where to start. Like, I don't know those first steps. So we've asked Kelly, I mean, she gives whole seminars on this, and she's going to actually be one of the speakers at the conference in March to give like details. But today she's just going to give us kind of like 4 or 5 starting steps of if you are just considering homeschooling, where do you begin? So what would you tell people, Kelly?
Well, the first step, if you have time, is to take some time to learn more. Some people I know are just kind of thrown in due to different circumstances in their families. But if you have the time to research it a little bit, that can take a lot of the anxiety out, I think. And there are so many places to go for information. You can talk to other homeschoolers. You can contact our representatives who are excited to talk with you and to hear some of your story and make recommendations to help you get started. And they're available with the phone or emails. The Facebook group, IAHE Facebook discussion group, has over 11,000 families in there. And that is a great place to either ask questions or just read through the conversations on there, because so many people are nervous and scared about getting started, and just reading discussion about it, I think, can take a lot of that anxiety away.
Yeah.
The website, the IHE website, also has a lot of resources that can help people to get started too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. The second thing I would say is take some time to look through curriculum. And I'll say right away, there's no perfect curriculum, right?
Exactly.
There's no company. And if you talk to homeschoolers, everyone's going to say, oh, this is the best. You know, they're convinced they've got it figured out. But what works for one student might not be the best fit for another student. So I like to encourage families to really take their time looking at curriculum. You can look at the different curriculum websites. You can get on their catalog list and have a physical catalog in front of you. That always helped me to look through. And think about, how does your student learn best? Do you have a student that likes worksheets? Because some kids just love those worksheets. Some kids, like my son, when he was about first grade, did not want to sit still. He was full of energy. So I needed hands-on type of things for him to do. My youngest could just snuggle up with the book all day. So every kid is different, but there's curriculum that can fit different kids where they're at, and maybe a better fit than other choices that are out there.
Yeah.
The third thing I would say still ties in with curriculum. It's don't overbuy.
I see that.
Yes. I see some families that think, oh, I've got to get something quick. And they jump in and they buy an entire year and then an entire group of extra activities, and then it's extra enrichment. And pretty soon they've spent all this money with such a load that no student could ever get through it all in a year. And that can be very frustrating. So I would say, don't overbuy. Look for the deals. Most of the curriculum companies have sales different times of the year. There are discount companies out there. There's Facebook curriculum reselling groups where you can get really good deals on curriculum there. There's local book sales and things. And even just looking through the library, sometimes you can find good resources, especially with library loan. You can get a book to see, is this something I want to own or something I want to just look through for now?
Right.
So I really encourage families not to feel pressured to hurry with the curriculum, but to take your time finding stuff.
Okay.
Yep. The fourth thing I would say is take a deep breath and just dream a little, right? What would your ideal school situation look like? Think back to what you liked and didn't like about being in school. And obviously we can't make it all fun and games every second, right? You still have to do some things that maybe you don't want to do, but think, what can you do to make your homeschool look more how you want it to be? Can you do things without always sitting at a desk? Maybe they never sit at a desk. Can you do some of your school outside? Do you have to start at 8 o'clock? Right. There's so many flexible things. I think getting out of the mindset of what public school is like and just dreaming a little bit, what would your ideal homeschool situation look like?
Exactly.
And it's not just the academics, as you know, Cindy. It's the relationship and the time that you have with your kids throughout the day. That all that's part of homeschooling too, not just the academics.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Did you have a fifth one?
Yep. My last one would be the fifth one, to kind of think of the end goal. What is your end goal when your kids are grown? What do you envision? If you want kids that are going to love to read, then you have to be choosy about what books you bring into your home. Right. If you're concerned about what your kid's character will be like as an adult, then find books and resources that can help build that even when they're young, to kind of set a foundation. Are there life skills that you want them to have? Are there interests that they have already that you can build on with the things that you spend some of your school day on? I know my family loves to be out in nature. We love to go on hikes and camp and do outdoor things together. So we've enjoyed being able to incorporate some of those interests into some of our homeschool as well. But along with looking at the end goal, I would tell parents too, to have kind of a realistic view of what it's going to look like.
Yeah.
You know, I kind of think back to when you have your first baby, you think, oh, I'm going to bring them home and they're never going to cry. And it's just going to be all the time. And,
It's so
you know,
beautiful.
and homeschooling, I think sometimes people get this image a lot of times from the catalogs that you're just going to sit and read books and everyone's going to smile all day. And it still has its hard days, but just because it's hard doesn't mean that you can't do it.
Absolutely. We had an episode, a couple episodes ago where the day that we were recording, I came on and it had been a rough morning with my son. And I had joked and I said, we literally were arguing about dirt. I mean, it didn't matter. It's like every comment that came up, there was some argument. And I was just like, what? But that's some of the days and it's okay. And I think like you were saying, those life skills, they even learn those just through sometimes the conflict and I like that he expresses his opinion and gives in, you know, and has conversation. Sometimes it drives me crazy, but overall, that's what I want him to do as an adult. So it's a good thing. Listening to your 5 steps, it kind of makes me laugh because I'm like, oh, I wish I would have known those 5 steps before I started years ago because yeah, like I did all of the things that you were like, you know, I was the person that bought all the curriculum in the first year. I mean, I must have spent, I mean, it was thousands of dollars that I was just shelling out because I thought, oh, we need this and we need this. And I found this one curriculum and bought everything that they had. And so like, and that's the other thing that I think some people, when they're new, do you have to have a purchased curriculum? Do you have to do that?
And some families don't. Some families just kind of unschool or just kind of wing it. I know for me, I felt that, especially in the younger years, that I wanted language arts, handwriting, and math to be a little more formal, but not everyone does that. But that worked well for us. We did history and science very informally the first couple of years.
Yeah.
Nature walks and exploring and library books about animals, things like that.
And it doesn't have to all be from the same company. Like you might like math from one, learning or language from another, and that's okay too, right? Like no one, especially in Indiana, and we always say on this podcast, this is for Indiana. If you are listening to us from somewhere else, the rules may be different. So we encourage you to find your state rules. But for Indiana, we do not have to tell anyone our curriculum. Like we don't have to get it approved, right? And so you can pick and choose what's best. If, you know, if you have a child who likes to color, maybe coloring things is the way they learn it versus the worksheets or, you know, things like that.
Yes, there's so many options out there that it's almost endless, and it can almost be overwhelming, I think, at first when people say, you know, what's a good curriculum? And then they get this list, you know, it's just never ending. And there's always new companies coming out, and it's just take it a year at a time and just take some time to pick a few to look through and then narrow it down.
And don't let, if somebody else is just, you know, I love this one and somebody else says, I love this one. Like you said, people get very passionate about their choices and their curriculum. And it doesn't make them wrong, but it doesn't make it right either, depending on your child or your family. You know, I think it's really great what you said as far as take time. And that doesn't mean that you can't start homeschooling your child tomorrow, but still take that time to just understand. I know it took us several months because we had done public school first. Some families don't. We kind of had to undo that mindset, even as parents. We thought we have to be doing school from, you know, 8 to 3, and then we need to be sitting at a table and we need to. And finally, I remember halfway through my first kind of semester of doing it, saying to you know, my son, especially, if you want to go lay by the fireplace, he found a place behind our chair that he liked to camp out and put a blanket on and just, you know, do his work. That was hard for me, but I had to go, you know what, this works for him.
Well, I know going to public school myself growing up, it was you sit at your desk, you're quiet, you don't get up till you're told that you can. You know, there was a lot of rules to keep order in a classroom. I get it. But with homeschooling, you have that flexibility to do what your kid needs. If they want to stand up at the table, does it hurt? No, it doesn't hurt. It might help them.
if they want to walk around the room while they're reading, or I mean, whatever they need to do, it's just, yeah. And I really loved where you said, so like the don't overbuy. I love that. But like the take a deep breath and dream. We go back all the time to, and I'm doing a session on this at conference, but kind of developing your why. Like, why did you decide to homeschool? And sometimes you have to keep going back to that. It's like, why are we doing this? And what's our purpose? And does this moment define that? And it probably doesn't, you know? And so if
Yeah.
your why was to spend more time with your child, or to get to, you know, kind of choose different things they're learning, kind of keep making that a touchstone of, yes, we're doing okay. We're doing
Yes.
okay. And not let other people kind of dictate that for you, or make you feel bad because of one way you're doing it. I love social media, and I also, you know, sometimes I think it brings stress to people that doesn't need to be there.
Yes. And that's why I think if you can find a kind of a homeschool community or a few other moms that are homeschooling, whether you get together weekly or just once a month or once every other month, just to touch base and talk about how it's really going,
Yeah.
that can take so much pressure off, because we get this idea in our head that everybody's homeschool looks perfect. And when you
Right.
hear struggles, you think, oh, that's me too. Or, you know,
Right.
we're to kind of
It's not
support each other.
perfect. Or
Yeah.
even when people, you know, I'll see on social media, people say, oh, let me see where you know, your homeschool rooms, or where you do homeschool. And I was the same way. And we do have a little room in our house that is kind of our room. It's more our library and stuff. But then there's people that are like, you know, here's my homeschool room, and it's a basket with things in it. Or it's, you know, their coffee table or their dining room table. And there's nothing wrong with any of those methods.
Yeah, there's no right or wrong way with those little details. And
Right.
that's the mindset we have to get out of, because especially when first starting, it's tell me how to do it. I want to do it right. You know, we
Yes.
parents, I mean, we love our children. We want to do it the right way, but there's so much flexibility in how that can happen.
Right. But sometimes, yeah, when we are given all that flexibility, you're like, it can't be this, like, it can't be this easy. Somebody needs to be, you know, telling me what to do. I also loved what you said about, I was taking notes while you were talking, but like your end goal. And this has been something like their interests. And the past couple of years, I know this has been something we have really jumped on, because like you see them find these different things that they love. I was telling in a previous episode, I was talking about my son he got really excited about having tea, and like having like formal teas every once in a while. And so we've incorporated that into school. We make it like, okay, you pick the date and you decide what we're going to do. And it's kind of helped him with, you know, etiquette and planning and those skills, which, you know, we would never do had he been in a school environment. He's gone down a music path. He's gone down an acting path. And you get to just sort of follow them in a way and say, this is so cool. And people have said to me, well, do you really count that as homeschool? I'm like, absolutely. It can be
Yeah.
any of those things, right?
Yes. It's all part of the school day. It's all part of, yeah, what makes your family unique and builds those relationships as part of the school day too. Yeah.
Would you give anybody, the other thing that I see people get a little, I don't know, I don't want to say upset, but worried about, would you give any advice to people on like records and things? Like, I know I keep track of the days, but even like you and I've said, it's very loose. I mean, there's some Saturdays that I count as an education day because we've spent the day at a museum. Or so would you give anyone advice on that?
I would think the record keeping is much more important in high school.
Okay.
Not that we turn that into anyone, because we don't, but just when it comes to making your transcripts and things like that, it can be good to have detailed records for that.
For
But
that.
for the years, I mostly just kept, you know, a few key pieces that I was just proud that they'd worked hard on, or, you know, that they did that was funny. I know my son had one. It was an explode the code worksheet, and it said, can you drive on a park, or can you drive on a highway? And of course, the answer was yes, a car can drive on a highway. But he wrote, no, I'm too young. And of course, he misspelled the word young, and it was just hilarious. So that I kept just because it's cute. So
Yeah.
keeping some things can be nice, but you definitely don't have to keep all their worksheets and everything that they do. That could be overwhelming, I think.
I did that a first year too. I was like trying to keep binders for everybody and like having all their sheets in, because I was just being so, I guess, afraid of like, what if I miss something, or what if I have to show somebody? And then I realized this, I was making more work for myself
Yes.
and taking away from the things that mattered, like you were saying, the end goal time. That's what I really like. That was the thing that I needed to get to. And it takes, like you said at the beginning, how many years have you done this? 12?
This is 12th year. Yes.
12th year. And you said, I'm not an expert. Like I'm not, you think about other stuff. And if you were to do it for 12 years, you'd be pretty much it's like, hey, you've done this 12 years. You've done this a long time. You know what you're doing. But it's just a constant learning.
It is constant learning, and also with each kid being different.
Yes.
I know a mistake I made when I started off, I bought math curriculum, and then I thought, oh, I'll go ahead and buy the workbooks ahead for the next student for when they get to be that age, thinking I was being smart by planning ahead. Well, then after a year, we changed what curriculum we used. So don't buy for everybody, just do a year at a time.
Right. And it's okay. I mean, if your curriculum comes in smaller chunks, like if you don't have to buy the whole year, buy half a year, buy, some of the curriculums now will give you like the first few lessons free. Like I've seen that you can go on and like download a lesson. Try that. I mean, it's okay and it's okay to change. We've had every year different curriculum. And now this year I kind of just have a hodgepodge of like different things I've liked from different companies put together.
Yes.
And that's when people ask me, they're like, oh, what curriculum do you use? I'm like, well, that's not an easy, like, I don't have a one word answer.
Yes. Which subject and which kid?
Exactly. Who do you mean and what day? And it could change, because I even find that, I'll see things or I'm like, oh, look, somebody has a unit study on something like a holiday, and I'll pull that in and I'll just say, okay, for the next 2 weeks, we're going to do this. And like you mentioned, IAHE has so many great resources. I've seen the one floating around. Again, we're recording this in February of 24. But for the eclipse, I've seen that people have kind of created like a little unit study. Well, that's great because, you're not going to do that every year, obviously, or every semester, but it's something you can just pull in because it's happening now.
Yes.
Which I think is so fun. So, okay. So you gave us your 5, like how to get started, but like, if you had to end up, like if you were sitting with somebody and they just said, okay, Kelly, I just need like, what's your one piece of advice that if I didn't remember these top 5 at all, like what would be the one thing that I'm walking away from you ready to go?
That you're not alone, that there are resources and people that are ready to help. And that's, not to sound like an advertisement for IAHE, but really that's what we're here for. We're here to help. And our representatives, we're serving because we want to encourage people, and we've been there. We've been there when you first start and you're nervous and you're unsure and you're thinking, am I doing this right? Or you hit the hard stuff. We've been there and we want to help. Yeah. So I guess that would be the takeaway, is that you're not alone. There's people here to help.
I love that, because I think people do feel alone. When you're in a school system, there's all these people around, but when you decide to do this, whether you have 1 child or 10 children, you're still alone in this effort of doing it. And yeah, we have all these people who will just love on you, and you're never going to hear you're doing it wrong. You're never going to hear like, oh my gosh, what were you thinking? We're going to walk along beside you and say, okay, like, how can we help? What can we do for you? Which is so great to remember that. So if you're a mom or you're a dad and you're listening to this podcast and you're thinking, all I have felt is alone and I don't know where to turn, you at least have that first person to turn to. You can go to the IAHE website, you can find your regional rep, and you immediately have somebody there for you, which is so cool.
And when people do go to the website too, if there's not a representative's name for their region, then I personally cover those areas. So your email will get answered quickly. Your phone call will get returned. So don't let that discourage you if you don't see a name on the
Be
line.
somebody there. Yeah, there's a whole lot of people out there that'll still be willing to jump in and help you. Well,
Yes.
I absolutely love the 5 things. So again, the things that Kelly said were, take time to research, kind of understand like what your options are, what you're doing. Look at curriculums. Take time. It's okay. You don't have to jump into one curriculum. And her third thing was don't overbuy, because I think a lot of us have been there in those first beginning years. You think, the more I get, the better I'm going to be. That's not always the case. Deep breaths, like just take deep breaths and just dream. I love that, what you said. I love that. It almost makes me think of like creating a homeschool vision board or something. Like, what do we dream of for our homeschool and for our education process? And then think of the end goal. Like, what are you trying to think at? Like, who do you want these little people to end up being in the future? And look at their life skills, their interests. So those are great first steps. So if you jumped on and you thought, yeah, I don't know where even to begin, I'm thinking about this is the place to start. You can listen to this podcast, go listen to our other podcasts, go to the IAHE website. If you're listening early to this, and we keep telling you, and it'll be in the show notes, we have conference coming up in March. And so that's a great place, even if you're not homeschooling yet. Right? I mean, everybody's welcome at the conference to just come see what it's about. Just see what's out there. Kelly, anything else you want to say before we let everybody go? Any parting words?
Not that I can think of. It's just, it's an exciting journey.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much, Kelly, for just being here, being on the podcast. And again, we will put any show notes in that we've mentioned, again, websites or things like that, we will put in the bottom show notes. And we look forward to seeing you all again in our next podcast. So thanks again, Kelly.
You're welcome. Have a great day.